Welcome to the Finding Your Church podcast from findingyourchurch.com. My name is Jeremy Phillips, and my goal is to help you make it a challenge for people to live in your community without finding your church. There are many different approaches that we could talk about and extremely technical things that we could do to improve the findability of our church website or our church online. You know, there's some of you listening who would understand those things and love to make the tedious and detailed time investment that it would take to put those strategies into place. And those ideas are probably valid and would work to improve your church online presence. But how many of those extremely technical strategies would actually bring new guests through your doors and new people visiting your church? Even more importantly, if you are limited on time and resources, you want to put your effort into something you can actually understand and accomplish. You do not want to invest your limited time into something that will frustrate you and produce limited results. So we want to look at 5 free steps that you can take today to improve your church online internet presence. And so for the most part, as long as you have access to the internet and your social media accounts, you can do these steps. Only one of these steps requires that you have access to the back end of your actual website. So let's get started with these 5 free steps. So number 1, add your exact church name, address, and phone number to the footer of your website. So if you're using WordPress, you can actually add this information using a footer widget. So you can add that only one time in the widgets area and it will show up on every page. If you are using some other website program, you may have to actually add this to the footer of each page of your site one at a time. And if you're using an outside company to handle your website, you will need to ask them to make this change for you. And lastly, if you're currently unhappy with your church website, check out our resource page at findingyourchurch.com/toolbox for options to have a new one created for you. So why would we want to add this information to every page of our church website? Why not just have the contact information on the contact page only? And most churches do it this way. Well, the main reason for this will tie into the 4th and 5th steps as well. One of the things Google looks for to make sure business and churches are open and being managed by real people is how consistent the business or church name, address, and phone number is across the internet. And when Google sees that your church name, address, and phone number is exactly the same on local business directories and other directory sites online as it is on your church website, it can be more likely that Google will boost your website in local church search terms. So the simple way to approach this is to determine your exact church name, address, and main phone number and use it everywhere in the exact same format. You have to decide exactly how you're going to write out your church name. Do you include your denomination in the name? Do you abbreviate anything, which can be a huge problem? One of the churches that I worked at was an Assembly of God church, and this definitely becomes a problem when you abbreviate assembly. An abbreviated version of Assembly of God is probably one of the most disrespectful things you could ever see, and yet you would see it abbreviated over and over again from churches who evidently put zero thought into their church name. And then when you had businesses, who would provide products for the church or like checks for the church or whatever, the bank would abbreviate. And I don't understand why they would do that. But an additional problem with the word assembly is that it shows up when you open multiple tabs in your internet browser. So the more tabs you open, the less text you see in the tab title. So many times you would look at it and assembly would abbreviate itself because of the limited text space. No bueno. So the way we got around this was just to use the abbreviation AG in place of Assemblies of God. So you need to decide on the exact wording of your name and also your address. How are you going to write your address? Do you spell out north, or do you just use the letter N and a period or something like that? Do you use avenue or AVE? It doesn't matter how you do it, other than you need to make a decision and stick with it. Place it in the footer of your website so that it shows up on every page, so Google can definitely connect that contact information to your website. So the second thing you can do for free today is to do a Google search for your church and to see what you find. And you may actually do many Google searches. So this is especially important if you have changed locations a lot in your church history. You will most likely find places online that still have your old address, phone numbers, website addresses, or outdated service times. So if you can find them yourself, most likely a potential new guest trying to visit your church will find them too. And that can be frustrating. So once you find the problem sites, you can make a list of them and contact the site owners to make changes to reflect the truth about your church. And you never know what you'll find when you start Googling. Some churches have blogs dedicated to pushing negative information about them. You may find out some things that you didn't want to know about a staff member or a volunteer or whatever. You're mainly trying to correct inaccurate contact information that would deter a new visitor from finding your church. But if you find out other information, it'd probably be better to know and deal with that sooner than later anyway. So Google away. Third, open and improve your social media accounts. Fill in all the fields and make them consistent. You may have had your social media accounts created a long time ago and things have changed, or you created them quickly and did not really fill in all of the details. One way to make an immediate impact on your online presence is to simply log in to the settings of all of your accounts and update your information so that it is current. Just like having outdated information on a Google search, that can detour a potential new guest from visiting your church. The same is true for outdated and incorrect profile information on social media accounts. Another issue is how often these sites change their layout. Your account homepages may have looked great as far as the graphics when you first set it up, but things may have changed, and rudely, they never bothered to tell you about it. Or maybe you put a header graphic of an old series up there and forgot to go back and change it or something, and it's still from, 3 months ago or whatever. So now either your header graphic, if they've changed the sizes or something, it's stretched and weirdly fits in the new size, or it's just a blank box where one of your graphics should be. So log in and completely fill out all of your account profile and update your graphics today. Check out the free Photoshop for Churches podcast episode, as an earlier episode that we did, for details about a free graphics creation online software that has templates for nearly every type of social media graphic that you will need. Number 4, find yourself on Google Business, Yahoo Local, and Bing Places search engines and decide to get control, improve, and optimize these sites. Now, the 5th step that I'm going to talk about in a minute will make this process so much easier for these 3 sites and many other of these types of local business directory sites. But Google, Yahoo, and Bing have created local business directories, and your church needs to claim and optimize all of these things, your listings on these sites, if possible, to become more easily found by potential new guests who want to visit your church. And these can be a challenge to claim and optimize. They don't make it easy for whatever reason, but it is very possible and it's very beneficial. So what you need to realize is that new potential guests who want to visit your church are many times finding these business page listings before finding your church website. And if these listings are not claimed, the information is not filled out completely, and there are not pictures or a church logo, it can make your church look like it's not very professional. And it may even give the impression that your church is not even open at all. And that potential visitor is probably just going to move on and find somewhere else to go. So in addition to the big 3, you'll also want to claim and optimize as many of these local business directories as possible. These include websites like Manta, Merchant Circle, and the online Yellow Pages, but there are many more than that. And the reason for that is this: when you claim and optimize these listings, you are also adding in your correct and exact church name, address, and phone number. And as we discussed in the first step, placing this correct contact information on as many of these directory sites as possible potentially helps your website in Google search. And this is also a benefit because then you're listed correctly on the sites themselves, on the directory sites themselves, so people are searching for businesses and churches there too, so you can be found. So the 4th step is just to realize that you need to see what your potential guests and visitors are seeing on these sites when they search for your church. And that is fairly simple to find on Google Business, Yahoo Local, and Bing Places, but definitely a challenge to find on the 50 or so other directory websites that you will want to claim and be found on. So each of these sites has their own setup, and it can be a challenge to pull that information together. So that leads me to the 5th free step. Number 5, get a free local business directory scan for your church. You can request your free personalized online visibility scan for your church by going directly to the scan request page at findingyourchurch.com/free scan. That's findingyourchurch.com/free scan. Now, this scan will save you a ton of time and work. This scan's not only going to search to discover if you are listed on all these 50 or so sites, it's also going to give you direct links to the listings that it does find so that you can see if your information is correct. And this is much easier than doing it yourself. So when you get the scan, all of the information is yours to keep. So you can either claim and optimize these listings yourself using this information, or you can have a company help you complete this process for you. So once you get the free scan, the choice is up to you. You'll have all the information you need to do it yourself. And if you need help, Finding Your Church offers a service that can do this for you that will save you even more time in setting this up. I have done this personally myself by hand, and it's one of the most annoying processes that you can ever go through in your life. It's tedious, it's boring, and it takes a lot of time, but once you have it set up, it makes a huge difference online for your church findability. So all you need to do now is go to findingyourchurch.com/free scan to request yours. And remember to check out our resource page with that link is on there, and many other resources to help your church get found online at findingyourchurch.com/toolbox. And that's all for this episode. Now go and get found.